everyone, so I'm out on the common today and I'm just noticing a lot of amazing spring plants coming up, amongst which are cleavers, and I thought I'd do a little video about them because they're so easy to use and it's such a brief season, so it's really worth getting out there and picking some. So here we go, this is what they look like. Be careful because they often grow next to nettles. So just watch your hands while you pick them because there might be nettles growing in the undergrowth. They have this very distinctive square stem, which is typical of the mint family, and these whorls of leaves that come out at sort of intervals along the square stem. They also have this very kind of sticky quality, so I don't know if you can tell, but it sort of sticks to my hand, and one of the English common names is sticky willy. So what you do is you just grab a bunch of them, put your hands firmly around it and just pull. They come up quite easily. Hey everybody, I'm back from the park and I'm back in the kitchen. So hopefully from the previous video you're able to identify what cleavers look like and pick them. Something that I didn't say when I was in the park is to follow responsible foraging guidelines, which basically state that you don't take any more than 10% of a patch that is established. So just being kind of respectful and responsible in that respect. Yeah, so once you've picked your cleavers, I've given them a bit of a rinse under some cold water just to get rid of any pollution or anything that might have been on them, but I think the patch that I took them from was very clean. Avoid, pathways where dogs might be going regularly. There might be some dog pee on your cleavers, but woodland floors are pretty good. Just going a little bit off the beaten track, they'll be perfect for this. So now I'm just going to remove any kind of grizzly bits, any roots, any earthy bits, and then we'll go to the next phase. Alright, so I've cleaned off any kind of nasty bits of the cleavers. You don't have to be too kind of obsessive about this, as long as there's not big chunks of dirt or bugs going into your water. I've also got some amazing wild garlic that I stumbled across this morning, which is very pungent, and I'm aware of it right here, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. So we'll just focus on the cleavers for now. What we're going to do is pop these in a blender, but because they're so fibrous, and when you pick yours you'll see they're quite kind of a bit like celery. They have these long fibres kind of running through them, a little bit like nettles as well. So just to break those up a bit before I do put them in the blender. If you don't have a blender, just finely chop the cleavers, and then you can just pour the fresh spring water or filtered water over them. So that's probably good enough. And then what I'm going to do is just pop these straight into the blender over here, and I'll just turn the laptop around so you can see. Yeah. So this is probably, one batch. And I'm just going to cover those with some filtered water and then blend it. So I've just blended those cleavers up with some water, and you don't need to make them very fine. It's just to increase the surface area of the cleavers, so that all the beautiful minerals in there can travel into the water that you're going to drink, because eventually you will strain out the herb itself. So I'm just going to transfer that batch to probably one of these jars. And I've got actually quite a lot of cleavers, quite easy to pick a lot of cleavers because they come up so easily. So I'm just going to process all of those and maybe fast forward this little bit of the video if I can figure out how to do that. Alright, so I've made it through all of the cleavers, and now I have this big jar full, well, half full of minced up cleavers and water. What you could do is actually top it up right to the top because it's quite strong. I don't know if you noticed when I was pouring it in, it was actually more like juice, like a very strong green colour. So you could actually dilute that a little bit, and I think that would be fine. I think I'm going to keep mine quite strong and have it as like little shots in the morning. Something that was really useful while I was doing it was having this funnel. So if you have a funnel, maybe use that for this purpose as well. Especially given that it's quite sort of, there's like liquid and then there's chunks. So just so that all of that goodness makes it into the jar, have a funnel, that's super useful. So that's kind of done. I can close this up. What I've also done is I've made a label because I think it's always a good idea, even though this will be drunk in the next couple of days, it's always a good idea to write a label just with what's in here and the date where it was picked or made. Just in, you know, it's more relevant for the longer term stored preparations like tinctures and things. Because so I think if you deal with this stuff, you'll know that you can end up with a lot of dark bottles with no labels, and then you just don't know what you're dealing with, and you end up wasting a lot of plant goodness. So just stick a label on it. It looks kind of nice too. It looks crafty. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you can actually use this for. So cleavers are kind of known most for their lymphatic action. So the lymphatic system is the kind of second fluid system of the body alongside the blood flow. So the lymphatic fluid and lymph flow operates in a kind of counter-directional flow than the blood. So what you'll have is, you know, veins, arteries, going in one direction, and then the lymph channels, lymph vessels or nodes are flowing, the fluid is flowing in the opposite direction of the blood. And what it does is that across these very fine walls of the blood capillaries and the lymph vessels, you know, things are drawn into the lymph from the blood. So, you know, things that you don't want in there, toxins, things like that. So the lymph has a really important function in maintaining the purity of the blood, the cleanliness of the blood, and therefore also, you know, the general health of the body and the immune system. So primarily a lymphatic cleanser. And also, you know, as a result of that, a blood cleanser, as I just said. Someone once told me a really good analogy, which I love, and it's easy to remember. Because of the shape of cleavers, they kind of look like pipe cleaners, and the little bristles that they have all over their surface are quite sticky. So someone once told me that that cleavers are like the pipe cleaners of the lymphatic system. I think that's a really good analogy, because what they do is, or the action of the cleavers on that system is just to kind of like clean it out, get rid of anything. It's also a diuretic, so it acts on the urinary tract, the kidneys, so it kind of just like flushes and cleanses the body, which is great in spring, which is one of the 2 seasons of the year where the body is undergoing the most kind of cleansing action of its own through the detoxification of the liver, etc. So it kind of supports us in this season right when it comes out of the ground. So that's really, really nice. So I mentioned about the action on the urinary tract. It's a diuretic, which means that it kind of stimulates the urinary system, so the kidneys, the urinary tracts, and so if you have any kind of kidney problems, if you're prone to getting urinary tract infections or urinary tract inflammation, then this is so great, because not only is it a diuretic and it has this kind of cleansing property, but it's also very cooling. In fact, it's called a refrigerant, so even more than cooling. It sounds kind of like an extreme cooling. But when you have that kind of like irritation in the urinary tract, this is a really good one for you. And also it has this slightly astringent taste, which means that it has a kind of toning effect on those channels, on the smooth muscle of the whole urinary system. There goes my dog. The last thing that, oh yeah, no, two more things. So it's very high in a mineral called silica. Benji, shh. It's very high in a mineral called silica, which is a very big proponent or component of our teeth and hair. So this is a great hair tonic, and it's really supports healthy hair growth, healthy teeth. So it was traditionally used, for many things, but also as a sort of beauty tonic, because it has this effect on the hair, the teeth, but also the skin, because whenever you cleanse the lymphatic system, you're also giving the skin a chance to really clear up and glow. And I can't remember the exact words of this, but there's this kind of folk legend that if you drink water of Cleavers for 50 days or something, then you'll be the most beautiful woman in the land and everyone will fall in love with you because your skin will glow with health. So that's the idea. And obviously, we know that like being beautiful is also about maintaining that inner health, and that's what's really beautiful when people are just like glowing with health. And Cleavers certainly can help you with that. Also, in terms of its effects on the lymphatic system, it can really help with autoimmune skin disorders, so things like eczema, psoriasis, and because it has that kind of cooling property, it also kind of calms all of that down. You could also apply that kind of ground up Cleavers sort of pulp to your skin if you had any kind of rash or eczema or psoriasis, and I'm sure that would help that to cool down and clear up a little bit sooner maybe than it would have without. So yeah, so this would go, that's all I have to say. These are two really great books that I would recommend. This one is by David Hoffman, and it's based on an ancient Welsh herbal, and this one is by Juliette de Barraclough-Levy, who's a English herbalist, but she lived in Greece and with the gypsies for a long time, but they both have a really good part on Cleavers. So the only thing that's left to do is just to leave this in the fridge overnight and then drink it. This will last a few days in your fridge, so just if you're looking to do a little kind of mini cleanse or something, this is a really good one for this season. And the flavour I think is really nice. It tastes a bit sort of grassy, so a bit like wheatgrass juice or something like that. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful. The only thing I didn't say is the other names of Cleavers, which are, the Latin name is Gallium aperine. It's also known as goosegrass and sticky willy, which I think I mentioned earlier because it's of this sort of sticky quality that the hairs on the stem and leaves have. So you might not call it Cleavers in your country, but that's all the other names. So yeah, I think that's everything that I had to share, but good luck if you're making your own and enjoy. Bye.